Hey everybody, it's Chuck. How are you? Looks like summer's over. Um, Sister's already gone back to college as a teacher. Is it just me, or does the school years seem to get start earlier and earlier as the years go by? I mean, I know a lot of friends who have children, and they've actually been in school since the middle of August. And I think back to when I was that age, and the idea of going back to school any time before September would have just warped my delicate little sensibilities. Then again, as my barber explains, because she has friends like that, the school year ends much earlier for them, like around May. It's usually in states that are in the South where summers get really hot and they just don't want the kids out, like in a building like that, because it gets very, very hot. So I guess it's a trade-off. When I was younger, I remember, first beginning of June being done with school, and then as time went on, policies were changed, adults, making decisions. When I was in public school, we ended up going to like the end of June, like near the almost last week before the penultimate week of June, and it was, this was even before they added in the midwinter break in February. And then when I went to high school, I went to Catholic school. It was really back, middle of June, something like that. But yeah, so everybody's back. I just want to give you a little update on the channel, what's been going on. If you see me looking off, I'm looking at my screen to make sure it's recording and all that. So yeah, where have we been since the last time? The first thing is I want to maybe talk a little bit about, maybe this can be a little bit like group therapy for me of what exactly has been going on. I know from the end of last summer I had mentioned some stuff was going on in my house. And I think maybe now from what you're seeing, because I did actually get a new webcam. I replaced the old one that we'll get to in a little bit. You can see some new styling and stuff like that. We had to have what was going to be some simple renovations on the house due to some issues that I really don't want to get into. Um, Turned into major renovations that were very time consuming, and there was a lot of friction, a lot of tension. Those were finished last summer, but unfortunately certain things that needed to be done were not done until this summer, in terms of the flooring of the domicile, rearranging furniture. So all of that is done, and now it's to a point where we're having to just unpack. And when you're unpacking, you're rethinking things, little tweaks here and there. A lot of that's falling on me since a lot of the other people just aren't around or aren't able to help. But that did affect the reviews to some extent, where I was recording a bunch of stuff as soon as I got it, and then it was going back into boxes, so I really wasn't spending time with it, like the leader class seekers. When I got Starscream, that was like bang and a bang boom, done. I have Thundercracker, haven't had a chance to review it yet, and Skywarp is on my horizon, just because I think it's hysterical that in a calendar year we got the three main seekers in two different size classes. But really now it's just things have returned to normalcy. We've done a little more tweaking on the house. There's an air conditioner downstairs, some new appliances, but the stress there is not so much paying for it, but the installation and this and that, and just rearranging things, and just hoping it to get over. Uh, which brings me to my next point. Well, that's all going to be done. But like I said, also there was an adjustment in funds, and that kind of changed the way I do reviews, in that basically I really can't spend on other lines that I would like be interested in or want to fool around with, because also around the same time, YouTube decided to change the way they pay out for monetized videos. Originally, it was based on views. So to give you a very, very rough estimate, let's say a video gets 1,000 views, that's $1. Now it's more about the length of time somebody watches a video and retention, meaning, after you're done watching that video, do you stay on YouTube and stuff like that. And because of that, I've had to change the way I film videos and that making them much smaller because I look over my analytics and I see that people are only watching 2 to 3 minutes of a video. So if I'm doing a video that's maybe 10, 12 minutes, they're not staying around that long, and it's really not a lot of retention. And this isn't just me. There's a lot of reviewers that are having that issue. And to be honest, if it wasn't for Optobotanist, a great guy that he is, mentioning that in a live show he did, I wouldn't have known about it, and I would have just gone on my way. With that said, some of you have probably already noticed the new videos going up. Very short, not a lot of talking, just here's the figure, transformation, final thoughts, and stuff like that. And I have to say, I do notice a difference. I have 3 videos. One is at like a little over 1,000 views, one is at like 600, and one is like around 500, and they've all made basically the same amount of money because they're roughly the same length. And I'm just like, whoa. Now, I do want to make it clear, and because I mentioned this in Warrior Class Starscream's video, I mentioned a little bit of this, but this is the first I'm going into detail. If the figure requires the time, like Warrior Class Starscream, I had to go through that transformation very carefully because the instructions on the packaging were junk. I will do it because that's what's important, that people understand. Because I kind of get the feeling I have a lot of parents watching, who buy for their children. I mean, my demographics tend to skew to like males who are older, but and the females who do watch are of that relative same age. So I want to make sure they understand what they're buying for their children and that it's clear that this doesn't work. But with that said, like stuff like Marvel Legends, which I really don't review on the channel because they don't get views, I can't really spend money on. I have to go, I rely on Amazon gift cards. Like, I finished the Hulkbuster wave earlier this year, and that came out really like last year, the end of the previous year, and it just took me that long to be able to get all the figures, because also you run into a problem like I am now with the Rhino wave, where certain figures prove to be very desirable and they disappear because people buy them up to try and control the market on them. Whatever, I don't really want to get into it. But going forward, the videos are going to be shorter. They're going to, I mean, all the main points that have to be there will be there, but they're going to be shorter. There's not going to be, the talking, the humor, what have you. Maybe I'll do more vlogs like this just to get it out of my system. But and they're basically going to be primarily Transformers focused. There's a fair amount of Transformers out there. I just filmed a couple reviews right now just for the Titans Return Wave 2 figures. So that's coming. I still have Skull Smasher from Wave 1 I want to put up. I'm doing the club figures, which we know that from where I was from my last vlog till now, Combiner Wars ended, and I have to say, depending on how you look at it, I mean, it's done. If you look at it in terms of retail, it was over with the Skylinks wave, and if you look at it in terms of those packaging, now that Computron's being released, that's it. Leo Kaiser is apparently going to be a platinum release, but that's a whole other thing, because I'm hearing now that's going to add like $100 onto the price alone, but whatever. I just don't want to start thinking about that right now. But Combiner Wars, in my opinion, ended with a real thud. While it was going on, I thought it was really cool. I mean, I was really into the figures. I loved it. I had like the combiners all over the place, and of course, I had to pack them all up and stuff. But I mean, they really were imposing. They were chunky. They were hitting my nostalgia bone very in a good way. In Unite Wars, Takara's doing their own thing. That they were just doing the gift sets to get straight out, boom, 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 no muss, no fuss. But then it's really at the end, it was like, oh wait a minute, this is. I look back and it was like, oh, they only used like 3 or 4 molds for everything else. And it was like they just kept repainting, retooling, and I know a lot of people now refer to Combiner Wars as repaint wars, and I'd like to see the actual numbers. I'm not going to do it myself, but I tend to think that Combiner Wars, since G1, is the line that's used the most repaints, and I really think everyone's like, well, they gave us new heads, and it's like I think we need to stop thinking that just because it's a new head doesn't mean it's just a repaint, because that really doesn't do much. Now, don't get me wrong. What they did with Rook, Swindle, Hound, and then Takara did now with Nosecone is phenomenal. That type of retooling is great. What Hasbro did with the Strafe mold, and I think it was the Air Raid mold, that was great because you put the two together. It's very hard to see where the originals come from. But the fact that end mold kept getting used over and over and over, and it just kept popping up. It was just, I mean, I reviewed Blast Off. I just wasn't. I just didn't have the inspiration to do the other Combaticons yet. I mean, I would like to get my hands on them because I was really excited for that set. But I think what happened is that set was announced so early and pre-orders went up so early that when it finally got in hand, it was like every mold in that set I had experienced 3 times over already. And keep in mind, they retooled Vortex. They gave them 4 rotor blades. I mean, that was something that nobody really knew until a couple of weeks before the figure's release. So we were getting like a lot of new there. And I mean, the colors look phenomenal. And I really should take it out just to make sure my Onslaught has working knees or not. Because I don't know if you guys heard about that particular mold with Victorion, and I think actually with my Bludgeon from the Collectors Club, uh, the knees have the hinges have been reversed. They can't lock in properly, but they're tight enough that they hold. So yeah, so that goes into like the Collectors Club. Like I was excited for that set, but by the time I started getting it, it was again another issue of I got this mold 4 times already. The Target Masters did help. The Target Masters really did help make it interesting, but by the time Bludgeon was in my hand, I'm like, wow, okay. And then there's the other issue of and the reason why you haven't seen Bludgeon yet, but you've seen Blue Streak and Impactor, is I'm not really sure how to film that in the new parameters that I have in terms of reviews. Do I have to split the video with like just look at Bludgeon and then look at the combined form, putting it all together? um, and things of that nature, just so it's not a very long video. And that leads into the next thing I wanted to talk about. And I'm sorry if it seems like a lot of rambling and whining and woe is me. I do realize how lucky I am to be able to review toys like this and and make money for it. But I just want to make it clear to you guys what's been going on and stuff like that. I mean, I'm sure you've heard from other reviewers about the views going, because the views have also gone down, but the paying and all that. Um, I don't want to go into too many specifics, but as many of you know, part of the way that I get my views is that my videos get syndicated, well, not syndicated, but like treated as news on certain websites. And well, and one website in particular, that's how I get a lot of my views. And at one point in time, it was a difference. Getting that video up was the difference between getting a couple hundred views and a couple thousand views. And then in the rare cases when a video would go viral, like most of my movie reviews, we're talking about tens of thousands and in one case hundreds of thousands of views. Unfortunately, this particular site has decided to, for whatever reason, adjust how they handle videos and such, and start putting requirements on that, frankly, I really can't do. I mean, I've spoken to other people about it, and there's some insider stuff that it's really just, you know, I mean, I can sort of understand it, but it really is kind of screwing me over to a bit. One thing that, if you noticed, I was doing reviews of ways, like, um, usually it was like Legion figures, the one-step changers that I would get them and do them in combo reviews. That was at the request of this site that they said that they're not going to host the individual reviews. Well, unfortunately, that's not going to work for me anymore because those were relatively long videos that at the time did really well, but now would not float. So I need to review each figure uh, individually. That's why, in terms of the robots in disguise, the Minicon weapons, Tricerashot, that was it by itself. First of all, that was the only one I could find. Is it Tricerashot? Yeah, I'm looking over to read the packaging. Yeah, it's I wanted to say for Tricerodon for some reason, but Tricerashot. Uh, First of all, I had to get that from England because the Minicons, for whatever reason, are having a hard time hitting retail. And it was I have to do them individually just to keep the videos within a certain length. And unfortunately, that might mean you're not going to see them. Not so much a problem now, but when the movie lines runs around, which will hopefully be next year, we'll be talking about movie figures, which I'm not a fan of the movie, but I'm a fan of the views that I get from the figures. And really, that's the only time Transformers is popular. I'm sorry, I have the numbers to back it up. Uh, and that's that. With those, and they'll probably again be the one step, the simplified action feature Transformers like Power Blade Optimus Prime, which is my most watched video ever. Uh, so those are going to have to be individual videos, but shorter, and you may not be able to see them from the usual sites that you go to. So this is actually the first time I think I'm really going to mention this. If you're a fan of my videos, or if you know someone who's a fan of my videos, which you need to subscribe. You need to subscribe to make sure you see them, because you may not find them on various Transformer sites, because if they're not going to get news, they get lost in a forum and nobody really sees them. Now, in terms of these vlogs, and this is going long, this is the longest video I've done in a while, they, if you're seeing this, you're already a subscriber, because people don't watch vlogs unless, unless you're really interested. But what you need to do is if you have a friend who's not subscribed and likes to watch my videos, tell them, subscribe, just to make sure you're there. Because I really don't know going forward where my videos are going to end up, and YouTube is right now the only place you can watch them. So that's basically it in terms of the nuts and bolts of the site. Now, I did mention at the beginning I did get a new webcam. It's the same one I had, the Logitech C920. I had to replace it, and this kind of annoys me. Logitech basically makes great products. They make great mice, they make great trackballs, they make great headsets, which I'll get to, and they make great webcams. I mean, it's basically Logitech here, and then everybody else like down. But then there's the problem. This is really the first time I've had it. Once the warranty period is up, and I don't know if they plan it like this, I'm going to say no, because there's just no way that anybody would be like that. The product stops working, and that's why for a while I had to switch to my cell phone to film reviews, because the webcam just stopped working. I'd plug it in, and the computer just wouldn't recognize it. Maybe there was a fray in the wire or something. Because when I did get this new webcam, I compared it to the old one, And there were a few cosmetic changes, namely how the wire with it goes into the plug. There are like a little bit of an adjustments. But basically, once that warranty is up, Logitech doesn't want to know from me. And even while there is a warranty, they're not that helpful. Unfortunately, you're dealing with a customer service that might be in a different country than you. With that said, with the webcam, I was able to go back to using my headset to record the audio. This is actually another Logitech headset, wireless. This is actually the second pair, same thing as the webcam. After the 2-3 years of owning it, after the warranty expired, the headset stopped holding a charge, so I had to get a new one. And thankfully, by then the prices dropped. And again, it was also cosmetic differences in terms of the felt and foam on the actual unit and the headband. But one person, and I'm following my old retail mindset that if for every one person that says something, there's 10 that don't. Have mentioned about the volume levels. And now, obviously, I'm recording this using the camera's microphone. I just recorded 2 reviews using the camera's microphone. I thought it sounded the camera's microphone, and I was happy with it. Previously, I've had problems when using the camera's microphone that I get a lot of distortion, a lot of like that tinny sound that I really didn't like. And sometimes I have to record, there are people home. Now, what's great about these headsets is having the microphone there and up to my face. There's no, and this is what they're designed for, there's no ambient sound. You don't hear the noise outside, you don't hear the noise of the other people. You do lose a little bit in the level of the volume. Now, as I say to people, I'm sorry, I apologize, but I think the trade-off for the clarity of sound is worth it for the loss of volume, because you can always put your volume up. And I'm sorry if this is a situation where you have to raise your volume for my video and lower it for somebody else's, because let me tell you, I have to do that too for some reviewers. Some reviewers are very loud and abrasive. They have like little theme music going that's very loud, and I have to adjust it for one and then adjust it back for another. So, I mean, I will work on it. If it comes out good with these 2 videos that just using the camera microphone, I'll start doing that more. But, the headset isn't going to go away for any, long length of time. And I really am sorry about that. So, okay, moving on. I know, now this is only going to affect some of you. And this is basically, I guess, where we're going to close this little vlog on. I know I had talked about the stuff in the house, the changing of the reviews, and let me just come out and say it. I don't see another Salty Santa video this year in the way that you recognize it. Like, I do not see like a top 5 list, because frankly, I have not experienced 5 different lines, at least 5 different lines to rank it. And to be honest, I can't think of a line that was number 1. G.I. Joe was not number 1. G.I. Joe, I'm very frustrated with now that they're sticking with that 2-pack, 3-pack mentality where you're having to buy a pack of 3 figures and there's only one good one, and that packaging is horrible. I am not going, it's just, bad. Combiner Wars. Yes, the figures were fun, but there were many repeat issues. I'll be darned if I ever got a version of that Dead End mold before Blue Streak from the Collectors Club that its hips weren't completely and totally loose. Same thing with the aerial bots. You also had a problem with the ratchets on the Voyager figures, that when they were in their torso mode, you bring the combined robot's arms up, it would lean forward. And that's something called the combiner lean, and that happened quite often. And that got to be very annoying. So besides the repaints, besides those little mold issues, I really would have a hard time putting Combiner Wars at number 1. Again, I mean, they were actually number 1 previously when they first hit, because they were new and fresh and very interesting, and none of us saw what was coming. Robots in Disguise, unfortunately, is very hit and miss in terms of the quality of the figures. There's also a lot of times the Warrior figures don't come as often. I got Starscream. That's the newest Warrior figure I can remember getting in a while. I have the Power Surge version coming from Toys R Us. I'm waiting for these other, the Warrior Power Surge Optimus Prime. Windblade, I want to get the Takara version because they will actually paint the sword, and Scorponok I keep going back and forth on. But that's very short releases. I mean, there are the one-step changers. I get those very quickly. The Legion figures, I get them very quickly, review them, get them out. But then there's a gap. Apparently there's a three-step bisque that I am very interested in getting. So and so yeah. So, but the thing is, it's like they're very hit or miss. So I'd have a hard time putting them at number one. And the Marvel Legend figures, and the quality there in terms of the paint. With those figures, you have to really look at the paint, the articulation, more than the overall play value because they're not meant to be played with. And same thing with the Star Wars Black series. And it's just, I'd have a hard time, giving a blanket recommendation because I might have a good figure and your version of the figure is crap. But Salty Santa will return. I think he might do like a year-end recap type of thing, holiday special. Let me turn the camera here a little, see if you can see right there. Yeah, I finally got entered the 21st century and got a really nice new television, and it's a smart TV, so I can beam things from my computer, from my phone to it. So you might actually get like a nice little Yule log with Salty Santa. And if you know Salty, the log might not be a piece of wood. But yeah, I know that's for a few of you who, and I really do appreciate that you support those videos. They don't get a lot of views, but they're fun. I enjoy doing it. I mean, most of my channel is just very straight, dry reviews. This is the one, the Salty Santa stuff is like, I would say, the one thing that I can do to have a little bit of fun, entertain people. And who knows, 20 years from now, somebody might find them and be like, the heck is wrong with this guy? And, they come find me, in my little walker, and they, that was the old days, let me tell you. But yeah, so something will be done. I just really don't know what right now. But I can basically tell you it will not be a top 5 review. And, I mean, it's funny, it's August, but, right now, Christmas is only about 4 months away. So we're going to go from, what is it, like 82 degrees by me right now. We're going to go from that to the holiday season where it's going to be around in the 30s and 40s. Although last year, Christmas Eve, I was going out of my house with my sleeves rolled up and it was 70 degrees. So who knows? So yeah, I think that's about all I wanted to cover. I know this has been a little long because I really don't do these as often as I should. I mean, I know a lot of other people tend to do them, and hopefully I'll do another one soon before the holidays just to say things. So if you're going back to school, good luck. The best advice I mean, as someone who's been through the education system and is related to 2 educators, you know, don't go, don't let people push you, don't let the people in charge push you around. Don't be afraid to question what they tell you. They are not the be all end all. They do not hold your life in your hand. And don't be afraid to stand up for what you believe in, whether it's, popular or not. And then other than that, I hope you guys have a great fall. I hope your summer was really good, and I have some editing to do, so this is your old pal Chuck, and I'll talk to you next time.